Cindy was a high school outcast, her pale, almost translucent skin and lanky, awkward frame making her an easy target for the popular clique. With no friends to call her own, she was a social pariah, an outsider looking in on the vibrant social circles that dominated the school. Retreating into the virtual world of Call of Duty, Cindy found solace in the thrill of the game. Her lightning-fast reflexes and tactical prowess made her a force to be reckoned with, her virtual avatar cutting a swath through the enemy ranks with ruthless efficiency. In the dimly lit confines of her bedroom, Cindy's fingers danced across the keyboard, her eyes narrowed in concentration as she mowed down enemy after enemy. The thrill of victory was the only thing that made Cindy feel alive, a temporary escape from the relentless bullying and social isolation she faced at school. As she immersed herself in the virtual battlefield, the taunts and jeers of her classmates faded into the background, replaced by the adrenaline-fueled rush of triumph. In this digital realm, Cindy was in control, her skills and strategy the only things that mattered. The other players in Cindy's online matches were initially shocked to discover that the top-ranked player was a girl. They had grown accustomed to the male-dominated world of Call of Duty, where women were often dismissed or harassed. But as Cindy's skills became increasingly apparent, their attitudes shifted. "Damn, girl, you're a beast," one player exclaimed, his voice crackling through the headset. Cindy could almost picture the player's eyes widening in surprise, his mouth curving into an impressed grin. "Keep it up. You're gonna go far." Cindy felt a surge of pride at the unexpected praise. For once, she wasn't being judged or ridiculed for her passion for gaming. Instead, these strangers were acknowledging her talent and encouraging her to pursue her dreams. A glimmer of hope flickered in her chest, a sense that maybe, just maybe, she could find acceptance and belonging in this digital world. But the next day, as Cindy walked the familiar halls of her high school, the harsh reality of her social isolation came crashing back. Her classmates, with their perfectly coiffed hair and designer clothes, sneered and jeered at her, mocking her lanky frame, her unkempt appearance, and her obsession with video games. Cindy could feel their eyes boring into her, their whispers and laughter cutting deeper than any physical blow. She kept her head down, her shoulders hunched, desperately wishing she could disappear into the crowd. The taunts and insults were nothing new, but each one stung like a fresh wound, a constant reminder of her outsider status. As she trudged through the hallways, Cindy couldn't help but wonder if the acceptance she had found online was just a fleeting mirage, a temporary escape from the harsh realities of high school life. The digital world, where she had felt powerful and respected, seemed so far away, and the weight of her social isolation threatened to crush her. One day, as Cindy sat alone at her usual lunch table, her eyes downcast and her shoulders hunched, a looming shadow fell over her. She looked up to see the imposing figure of Brad, the school's resident bully, towering above her. A cruel grin was plastered across his broad, chiseled face as he sneered down at her. "Hey, freak," Brad spat, his voice dripping with disdain. "I heard you've been talking a big game online. Why don't you try that shit in real life, huh?" Cindy's heart raced, the blood pounding in her ears as she stared up at Brad, her mind racing with 1,000 possible comebacks. But before she could even open her mouth, Brad reached out and shoved her, his powerful hands sending her tumbling to the ground. Cindy's tray of food clattered to the floor, the contents spilling out in a messy heap. The other students in the cafeteria erupted in laughter, their jeers and taunts echoing through the cavernous room. Cindy felt her face flush with humiliation, her eyes stinging with the threat of tears. She had hoped that her online success would earn her some respect, but here, in the harsh reality of high school, she was still nothing more than a social outcast, a target for the cruel whims of the popular crowd. As the laughter and jeers continued to wash over her, Cindy felt a familiar sense of helplessness and despair. She had tried to stand up for herself, to show that she was more than just a freak, but it had only resulted in further humiliation. In that moment, She felt more alone and isolated than ever before, trapped in a world that seemed to have no place for someone like her. Humiliated and broken, Cindy retreated to the solace of her dimly lit bedroom, her eyes red and swollen from the tears that had streamed down her face. Seeking solace in the virtual world she had come to cherish, she logged into her Call of Duty game, her fingers trembling as she gripped the controller. As the match began, Cindy unleashed a torrent of fury, her virtual avatar mowing down enemy after enemy with a ruthless efficiency that bordered on the manic. Gone was the calm, calculated playstyle that had made her a force to be reckoned with. In its place was a frenzied, almost primal aggression, a dark energy coursing through her veins. Cindy could feel the rage consuming her, a raw, primal emotion that she had never experienced before. As the match drew to a close, her avatar stood alone, surrounded by the lifeless bodies of her opponents. She stared at the screen, her heart pounding, a twisted sense of satisfaction welling up inside her. In the days that followed, Cindy's behavior became increasingly erratic, a stark contrast to the meek, withdrawn persona she had once embodied. She would lash out at her classmates, her once meek demeanor replaced by a cold, calculating fury that sent shivers down the spines of those around her. The other students, sensing the change in Cindy, began to avoid her, whispering rumors of her unstable mental state. They watched with a mixture of fear and fascination as the once quiet outcast transformed into a volatile, unpredictable force, her actions becoming increasingly unpredictable and, in some cases, downright dangerous. It was as if the virtual world of Call of Duty had become a conduit for Cindy's darkest impulses, a place where she could unleash the rage and frustration that had been building within her for years. And as her classmates kept their distance, Cindy sank deeper into the abyss, her grip on reality slipping with each passing day. One fateful day, as Cindy made her way home from school, her steps heavy with the weight of another day's torment, she suddenly caught sight of a familiar figure in the distance. It was Brad, the bully who had relentlessly tormented her for years, his hulking frame and arrogant swagger instantly recognizable. A surge of rage, hot and primal, consumed Cindy, and without a moment's hesitation, she changed course and approached him, her eyes narrowed with a determination that bordered on madness. "Hey, Brad," she said, her voice eerily calm, almost devoid of emotion. "Remember when you pushed me in the cafeteria? Well, I've been thinking about that a lot lately." Brad, sensing the shift in Cindy's demeanor, took a step back, his bravado suddenly faltering. The confident smirk that had once adorned his face was replaced by a flicker of uncertainty, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. "What the hell are you talking about, freak?" he spat, his voice betraying a hint of unease. Cindy's lips curled into a twisted smile, a chilling contrast to the rage burning in her eyes. "I've been practicing my aim, Brad," she said, her hand reaching into the backpack slung over her shoulder. "And I think it's time I showed you what I can do." In a flash, Cindy's hand darted into her backpack, emerging with a handgun, the metal gleaming in the fading sunlight. Brad's eyes widened in pure terror as he realized the gravity of the situation, and he turned to flee, his instinct for self-preservation overriding his bravado. But Cindy was faster, her reflexes honed by countless hours spent mastering the virtual battlefields of Call of Duty. She raised the gun, her finger squeezing the trigger with a cold, calculated precision. The deafening crack of the gunshot echoed through the empty street, shattering the eerie silence. Brad crumpled to the ground, his body motionless, a crimson stain blossoming on his chest. Cindy stood over him, her chest heaving, a strange sense of calm washing over her. She had done it. She had finally stood up to her bully, and the feeling was intoxicating, a rush of power that she had never experienced before. As the wail of approaching police sirens pierced the air, Cindy turned and walked away, her steps steady and her mind clear. She knew that her actions would have consequences, that the law would come down on her with the full force of its authority. But in that moment, she didn't care. She had found her power, a dark and primal energy that had been simmering within her for years, and she was never going back.